Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Safa's Unscripted. Yes, just another two of us episode again. It's chaos at the moment. Brett's electricity currently off, as you all know. That's a regular in South Africa, but
Not in Cape Town.
not in Cape Town. But I mean, look, we're not going to let that spoil anything. We know Brett would love to be here, but big episode as. I think we're finally entering this new era, for the Springboks. Finally getting to see a side that we've all called for.
Rusty's listening to the people. Rusty's giving the people what they want. I'm kind of in two mindsets. I don't know about you. I'm thinking, did we choose this team just so we will see Andre and Faf against the All Blacks again? Is that kind of what we're expecting? Is this kind of a rotation team? But then I'm also thinking, is this the team for the future? I don't know how to feel about it. I seriously don't know. I'm going with the second one. I'm hoping for the second one. This is the team for the future. And that we are kind of seeing Andre getting onto the bench where he just comes on for clutch moments. But the majority of the game, we see Sasha.
Yeah, I mean, well, before we really get into the team, just thank you again for viewing this video, liking, sharing, and subscribing, and always interacting with us. I mean, it never goes unnoticed, and without you guys, we would be talking to no one. So, so we just appreciate you guys, honestly. But, I mean, let's get straight into it. I mean, obviously, look, I think on your point, I don't think it's a rotational thing. I think this is kind of the route they want to go. And at some point,
it doesn't feel rotational. That's kind of the thing.
I think literally every concern we had was answered. With Kwagga obviously being the 8. So as we all know, Alrich starting at 8. But we're going to jump all over the place here. But we didn't want Kwagga to obviously be the 8. We wanted him to come off the bench, do his job, coming off the bench. And that's been listened to. The Sasha thing with being a 10 has been listened to and not using him as a utility back. So there's so many things that Rassie has kind of, I doubt he took fans' advice. I mean, I'm not saying he's that type of coach, but he obviously kind of has the same opinion as us as to what he would like to see from the Springboks in the future.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of I think he's gotten to that point where it's maybe, okay, enough bullshit. Andre is a great player. He's been a great representative, but there's a reason there's a lot of hype around Sasha. We've seen the performances of Sasha when he's gotten onto the field, whether that was at 10 or whether it was at 15. And at some point, you need to say, okay, he needs to get a start, and you need to start him in a bigger game. You can't he didn't obviously start against Portugal, right? But you need to finally get to that point where it's okay, we're going to test him and not test him against Portugal. We're going to test him against teams that actually matter, because that is what we want for players like Sasha. So it's a massive thing for me that he's come through. I think it's also a massive step for Rassie to say, okay, listen, we've tried and we've tested Kwagga. It's not worked out like we want to in terms of the starting lineup. We know what he offers from the bench, so use him as the bench specialist. Obviously, if Mostert was there, Ergie Snyman would be the same. I don't think he's got the best impact when he starts necessarily. Or, wait, I worded that wrong. He's a great player when he starts, but he brings more of an impact when he comes from the bench. So I would definitely expect when Mostert comes back, he takes that 5 jersey. We see Ergie on the bench again. But then I also would like to see Ben Jason Dixon in the mix still, even though he's on the bench. So I love this team. It's a mixture of youngsters and experience coming through. The only change that I think should have been made is I've mentioned it before, combination work. So I would have loved to have seen Grant start instead of Reinach, but I know Reinach is better just because I feel Reinach and Pollard should be a combination, and those two should come on together, and then the same with Grant and Sasha. That's just my opinion on it. Obviously, I do believe Reinach is still the best scrum off in our country.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get some structure to this team. We'll start off with obviously the front row. Obviously, that's Oxenchair, Bongi Monambi and Frans Malherbe. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a front row that speaks for itself. On the front row, would you ever consider, and then obviously just to let everyone know, bench is Gerard Steenekamp, Malcolm Marx, who made a game early,
Non-injured
came back earlier
as we
than.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah, Malcolm Marx and Vincent Koch. But now I think the points I wanted to raise is obviously that starting front row is just it speaks for itself, like I said. But would you have maybe kind of it's a similar role that Achia and Kwacha play, but would you have rather seen Stennekamp start over Ox and let Ox do what he does off the bench, or you cool with him
I
starting?
hear where you're coming from, and we've spoke about it before that Ox is great coming from the bench. The thing is, Steenekamp is also great coming from the bench. Like we saw the impact that he made against Ireland. I don't think that's that's not a massive discussion or a massive debate whether you start one or bench the other. It's not the same as the likes of Ergia and Kwacha. Well,
Yeah.
kind of Kwacha is a man on by itself, right? Because Ergia doesn't drop off too much if he starts. I just appreciate his impact from the bench. But yeah, obviously we saw the damage Ox did when he came off the bench, but we also saw the damage Steenekamp did when he came off the bench. So I think I'd rather have started Ox or still started Ox. Just because he's got that tad bit more experience than Steenekamp, and Steenekamp still does the job off the bench. But I don't mind either way. We kind of saw this thing. They spoke about them all being on the same height, and I think Steenekamp is taller than Ox, right? And that fits in better with Malcolm Marx. So I maybe think that's the way that they went, because obviously Bongi is short, Ox is short, and Frans Malherbe is not the tallest guy in the world. So it's probably working in combinations.
Yeah, I mean, it was never really a debate or a concern in fans. It's just obviously just creating a bit of conversation about the different combinations and stuff like that. But like you said, they both bring so much off the bench anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But then obviously, I mean, so there's a bit of a caveat here. The scheduled locks to start are Eben and Achia. However, rumor has it Achia's currently nursing an injury where he may not be able to be fit for the game. And in that case, apparently the only thing is it's a straight swap for Ruan Nokia, who will come in at 5.
Enough to make a grown man cry. It's music to my ears that we went with that instead of Salman, instead of saying, okay, well, Salman, you can play 5 as well. I mean, it is music to my ears. It's beautiful. You mentioned it in a previous part where it was like, well, Nortje is the perfect replacement, like for Franco Mostert as well. So, I mean, it's beautiful. I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah, and the crazy part is, and before we chat more about the locks, is if you look on the bench, there's still no Murat, and the lock replacement is basically Ben Jason Dixon. So he's obviously going to be covering lock and flank or lock and loose forward. So, I mean, this is huge news because it's Ben Jason Dixon, Kwacha, and Marco van Staden, who are the three kind of loose forward lock replacement. So, no Murat, I completely agree with the call.
I've got a question for you. Like, obviously, Ben Jason Dixon is like a like for like replacement to Pieter-Steph du Toit, right? Like, I mean, obviously Pieter-Steph is better, but do you think we might see Ben Jason Dixon going on as a Lucy and then they just move Pieter-Steph du Toit as the lock, or do you think Ben Jason Dixon is the lock replacement?
I see what you're saying, like
because we know Pieter-Steph plays 80 minutes every game. That guy does not get replaced. He's too dumb to get subbed. He's too dumb to get tired. Like, I know I love Pieter-Steph du Toit, but you know, like sometimes you look at Ben Jason Dixon is the same, right? You look at them and like, does this guy know how to get tired? Like, is there enough brain cells to think if they're gonna get tired? That's kind of what I see with Pieter-Steph du Toit, and that's said with all the respect in the world. And we know he's played at lock before. Russi's captained him at lock, right? So I don't know. I've got a feeling like if Ben Jason Dixon comes on, it's going to be for the likes of Ergens Snyman or Ruan Orkia, and then Pieter-Steph moves into that 5 position because he runs the lines that 5 runs.
Yeah. So essentially, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see Kwagga come on for Ulrich, obviously. You're going to Marco come on for Sia, and then you'll have Ben Jason Dixon probably come on for Argia, Argia or Nokia, depending on who starts. Because, like you said, Peter Steptoe has to play 80 minutes no matter what, like unless there's an injury. So yeah, I think it would make sense to kind of, because how much has Ben Jason Dixon played lock for the Stormers?
He's played lock more than Peter Steff has played it for the Springboks, right? But he's a Lucy. Like, let's not beat around the bush. He's a Lucy that can play lock, exactly the same as Peter Steff. I think he's played a fair amount at lock, but like he's obviously better as a Lucy. I'm talking under correction. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, okay.
I can't remember. But
I think the move would be to put Peter Steff at lock, because Peter Steff knows the system well enough by now that he can slot in anywhere. Whereas Ben Jason Dixon, you want the guy to grow in his better position, so it would make 100% sense.
It's just an interesting point that I thought about, because like I saw it, and obviously your first thought is, okay, Ben Jason Dixon goes into lock because we've seen him play there before. But then it's like, just like you just said, do you want to use him as a future lock? Do you want to use him as a utility sub for the lock or the flanker position? Or do you say, listen, okay, he's the future Lucy. We have to play him as a Lucy only. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. But just like, imagine a starting combination. I mean, generally, how would you feel rocking up to a game knowing you have to go up against Jürgen Etzebeth and Argia Snyman as the two starting locks? Like,
I mean,
we naturally, and a lot of people.
How many times do you take a shit before the game?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I wish in like an alternate universe we could have seen this a lot more. Even though we love Argia coming off the bench, it's just, I remember at the Bulls, Argia was like this incredible, lock that obviously I loved, and then he started his career at the Springboks. When he started against England, I went to the game, and he had a storm of a game against England. I remember it. So, it's just crazy to see. I'm keen to see those two start for the first time in a long time.
Like, seeing that we're still on the forwards, just before we wrap up with the forwards, right? The only thing that I'm worried about, and this is exactly the team that I would have chosen. I love this team. The only change that I would have made is switch the front row for the front row on the bench. And my reasoning for that, like the full front row, right, is that starting 15 doesn't have a feature. The bench has got 3 features with Malcolm Marx, Marco van Staden, and Kwagga Smith. So I'm thinking, how are we going to put pressure on them at that ruck ball in terms of, are we just going to try and squeeze over them? Because there's no one that's really going to get their hands involved. Where if you have Malcolm Marx on the field, especially for the first half, now you pose the threat of either squeezing over them using the physicality, or Malcolm Marx just getting a clean steal. Where now we don't have that direct threat as a feature on the field, where from the bench it's like 3 coming on. Like, I don't know, does that make sense to you? Kind of.
Maybe it's a game plan thing. Because maybe I think I get you make 100% sense, but maybe like first half you kind of want to build up the possession, build up the points, like you want to have more of the ball. And in the second half, we know can tend to get a bit open, and that's when you kind of want 3 fetchers on the field. They can all. Yep. But like at the same time, it makes sense because you kind of do want someone that can disrupt and slow down ball for Australia, if that makes sense.
Someone like in their prime that would have been perfect for this game is if you had Dwayne Vermeulen starting at the 8 jersey, because then you have a prime feature and then you have 3 features coming off the bench just to give Australia literally no breaks whatsoever. But yeah,
100%. But like you said, we literally love that forward back. And then it goes on to the backs, and even here it gets even better, So obviously the 9 and 10 combo is Kobus Reinach and Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu, and the 9 and 10 coming off the bench is Grant Williams and Andre Pollard. So, immediately when we saw Sasha at 10, we were all like, this is the move to do. And we believed it must have been done sooner rather than later, if that makes sense. We didn't want to see him only playing against like
Scrubs.
or coming off the bench and only getting like 10 minutes. We wanted to see him like start to stamp his authority on that jersey already. We didn't want him to come in only at the end of year tour when there's kind of an experimentation sometimes. So, I mean, like you said, Quibus and Grant, you may have wanted to swap because
Combination
wise, yeah.
Just because I believe Sasha and Grant is the future, and the Pollard and Reinach would be the now. And like you kind of want to build that partnership for as long as you can. But that was just like I don't really mind. I'm just saying like I thought you might see that.
So, but like genuinely, how do you think Sasha goes in this game?
Well, I think this is the ideal team for him to play against currently. If you look at the Wallabies, like their attack was obviously dangerous, right? Like Wales isn't a team that necessarily leaks points, but they put a couple of points past them. But the thing is, Wales don't score a lot of points, and yet they scored a good few points against this Wallabies team. And if you look at the gaps that they have in defense, I think Sasha is literally the perfect guy in terms of taking on the gain line. If we can get him some proper front foot ball where he can just get that system going, Damian de Allende to bash it up, and then you get some creativity going once again. I think this is the perfect 10 for that Tony Brown system. It fits it like a glove. Him and Marnie both, to be fair. They just fit this Tony Brown system. But I think he's going to have a storm of a game. I think this is the opportunity that everyone's been asking for, and I think this is the opportunity that he's dreamt of, and he will step up to the plate. He just oozes a bit of aura. It doesn't look like anything really gets to him, like the moment of the debut or whatever, as a starter. So I think this is the game where he takes over.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously we know what Quibus Reinach can do. I mean, the guy's been there and done it, won a World Cup, 2 World Cups, obviously, had more of an important role coming into the second World Cup. So I feel like his importance has been realized quite late in his Springbok career. Because,
it's a shame.
It is a shame. I truly believe he was he had the potential to be one of the greatest scrum halves we ever had, But obviously that's in the past. We'll move on to the center.
I just wanted to add something with that combination. Like when Faf and Andre is there, you kind of know where the threat is coming from. It's either going to be a Andre cross kick to one of the wings, or Damian de Allende bashing it up, and then you get an offload or whatever. The fact that we have got an attacking 10 that can either kick, either pass the ball, like create something, or actually line himself, and you have a 9 that's so dangerous when it comes to sniping, so those guys have to be tied to the ruck. It gives us so much more attacking options that I absolutely love, because a lot of times, like, how many times have you seen Faf take a snipe, right? Never. So teams don't even look out for that. Like, he doesn't even try it, where Reinach loves it. But now they focus on that. Does he snipe? Does he pass the ball? Now you get Sasha, who's probably one of the most creative 10s in the world at the moment. Does he go to Damian de Allende, who's going to bash it up? Does he cross kick? Does he take it on himself? Does he keep pass with some dummy runners to Jesse Krill, who's finding gaps like it's some sweeties on the park or whatever? Like it just gives us so much more attacking options, which I absolutely love, which we didn't necessarily get with the previous partnership. Obviously, they have their own threats in terms of kicking to goal, but this is actual running rugby attacking threats, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously that then takes us into 12 and 13, with that being Damian de Allende and Jesse Krill. I mean, would you go any other partnership at this point?
No,
nothing.
Brett actually mentioned he would go for a 5-3 split with Lukhanyo Am on the bench. I'm not totally opposed to that. If you want to do it, you can do it against Australia. If you really want to play Lukhanyo Am, because we also heard the talks about Sasha training at the 10 position with Lukhanyo Am as the inside center. I don't know if you saw that. I saw it on Twitter, where apparently those two were training like that. That just gives you another option if Damian de Allende isn't available, if you want to maybe give him a rest, if you want to try something else. I don't think Lukani Am would be the worst inside centre in the world. Obviously, I'm not fully against it, but I'm not necessarily with it.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't expect any changes in terms of our centre pairing. Like that's as dangerous as it gets.
Yeah, 100%. Then obviously back three, no surprises there either. Villy coming back.
Vital.
Absolutely. And people keep saying, like, Villy is not important. He's done, like, first of all, let the oak get to 100 caps. He deserves it. Just let him get there. And second of all, people underrate that guy so much. Like, I don't think people realize he makes a few mistakes here and there, but just the
Not
way
really
he controls
anymore, to be fair.
Exactly.
Have
And
you
he
seen?
just
I haven't seen Villy make a mistake, like a proper mistake, in quite a while. To be fair,
I mean, for the Bulls this season, like without him, we wouldn't have got to where we were. And then obviously he wasn't available for the last game and we go and lose it. But obviously, yeah, so Villy at 15, Kirtley on the left, Chesney on the right.
Was it in the World Cup that Sia came out and he spoke about how vital Villy is for us in that 15 jersey, in terms of how he's just like a leader on the park from the backfield, how he just reads the game, he understands what's happening in front of him, he knows when to come into the line to give that final pass. I mean, you have to be good to have that many try assists, and people would actually think, okay, well, he's just giving the final pass. Why doesn't every other fullback have that many assists then? Like, they don't, because they don't read the game as Villy does, right? In an attacking sense. Obviously, he's vulnerable at points when it comes to defense or maybe under the high ball. But like, I think he's kind of worked around it, and he's aged like a fine wine when it comes to that fullback jersey. And I haven't always been a Villy fan. I'll openly say I had a lot of criticism around Villy, and I still believe Damian Willemse should be the 15, right? But obviously he's injured.
Oh,
But I love Villy at fullback at the moment. Like, without Willemse, Villy, without a shadow of a doubt, he's just so crucial to us in terms of how he reads that game, communication, gets under some of the opposing team's skin. Like, it's just a bit of a shithousery. That guy that you hate playing against, but love playing on your team, but also hate playing on your team. He's kind of just like a controversial figure all around.
Yeah, well, look, I think looking at the team, I think big games I want to see. Obviously, you want to see Ulrich play really well because, this is his opportunity to be like, hey, I'm here and, I can do what a lot of people didn't believe in me in the beginning, And then, obviously, Sasha, huge game for him. I mean, not in a pressure sense. I just think it's an important one for him to kick off his career as a Springbok, He'll want to make his mark. And then coming off the bench, I think Ben Jason Dixon just has a big role to play. Like, he's low key, and as you say, he's so similar to Peter Steph because he just grinds. He just does the dirty work, but at the same time, he does dirty work with the ball as well. So it's like he's just
he's got
people
such
have
a long
said
future for us.
People have said he's impressed them, and you don't often get that from like a debutant where they're like, oh, he really impressed me, So yeah, I think the guy has such a good future, and obviously it shows how much faith they have in him, that he's getting chosen over Murat, because people were saying Murat was going to be built as the next, guy in the lock position for the box. So yeah, any final thoughts from your side?
I'm excited to see Kwagga again. It kind of feels, because he started and didn't do himself any real favors. Like, I wouldn't say the fans turned against him, but there's a lot of question marks all of a sudden over his head, right? Because he didn't perform when he started. And I'm so excited for him to come off the bench and actually prove himself again. Like, for him to come out and say, okay, well, even though I shouldn't be starting, this is what I still offer to this team, right? Even though we know what he brings off the bench, like, it's never nice for a player to have question marks over his head, even though he was played out of position, like in terms of he shouldn't have started. So I'm excited to see a fired up and rejuvenated Kwagga that goes after the tired boys on the field, on the field, rips that ball. You don't know how he got that ball, but he's got it. I'm excited to see Kwagga do that. And a matchup that I'm really excited for, because Taniela Tupou doesn't always start, right? And he comes, so I'm excited to see Gerard Steenekamp go up against him. because obviously they go up against each other, which would be a massive battle. And we know how good he is at scrumming. Otherwise, we just see Oxen Che going up against Taniela Tupa. There's a couple of matchups that I'm like really excited for. Yeah, that's my final thought.
Yeah, I mean, crazy that, well, first of all, I mean, to all of us South Africans, we are going to have to wake up a bit earlier for this one. I mean, 6:30 kickoff or 6:45 kickoff in the morning.
Great way to start the day.
It is great. And then the next one is only then at 11:45 in the morning, or you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so excited for this game. I mean, there's not much more to it. I think it's a big rugby championship. A statement win needs to be made, and it's time for the Springboks to win a rugby championship in a full tournament. You know?
Final question for you. Andre Pollard, is it a straight swap for Sasha with about 20 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go? Or is it Sasha goes to fullback and Andre comes on for Veli just to give Sasha like his first full 80 minutes?
Straight swap.
Straight swap. Okay.
Straight swap, just because I think Vili, if the game's okay, let me put it to you this way. If game's close, straight swap. If game's easily manageable, put Sasha at 15 and then Vili off, because you won't need his experience at the back, if you get what I'm saying.
Yep. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it from two of us today. Again, Thursday, we will try and make, I mean, not Thursday, obviously our Friday episode, that we usually film on Thursdays. I am playing a rugby game on Thursday night, so we're going to try and make it the three of us. If not, I apologize. That should be the last two-person one. Then the three of us will be back. But anyways, that's it from us, and we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.